issue of taxes is a big one today. Have we mentioned, have you forgotten, it's April 15th? Well, just as they do every year, the wealthy and the right raise two main concerns. One is that taxes are too high. Another is that the U.S. tax code is too complicated. But this year, you can add to the debate the issue of wealth redistribution, as the AEI forecasts that 46% of Americans will have either zero or negative federal individual income tax liability by 2011. Now, here to talk about what that really means and if it's true and why he thinks it should be different is Chris Edwards, Director of Tax Policy Studies at the Cato Institute. So, Chris, good to have you here.
Thank you.
On Bloomberg. So, I mean, a lot of Americans not paying taxes.
That's right. Almost half of all American households now don't pay any federal income tax, and that share has been rising over the decades. Ever since the 1980s, each tax act, the 1986 Tax Act, the 1990, 93, the 2001 Bush Tax Act, took a few more million Americans off the tax rolls. And this creates a problem, I think, in a democracy where we all should sort of have a piece of skin with, with the government, and we each should feel the government burden a little bit. It's a problem that so many people are not paying taxes.
They do, though, pay taxes in some ways, right? They pay payroll taxes. They pay, obviously, sales taxes when they go buy things at the stores. So they have some skin in the game. It's just that they don't maybe notice it as much as the rest of us would.
That's right. And it is true also, though, if you look at the overall tax burdens, which I think we're going to hear in some of your charts, that, I mean, the folks at the top on average pay about a quarter of their income to the federal government. The folks in the bottom fifth pay only about 5% to the government.
And let's actually, guys, if we can bring up that chart that shows the shares of federal individual income taxes paid by, various income groups, if we can show that to our viewers, I mean, you can see proportionally how the bottom 50% are paying about almost 3% of taxes that are out there.
If you just look at income taxes, the wealthiest 1% pay 40% of the entire load. It's really remarkable.
Chris, let me though ask you though. I mean, those who pay no federal taxes, we talked with folks over at the Tax Policy Center. They're mostly low-income, elderly, or very poor families with children. So why should they be paying more?
I agree that we shouldn't tax people below the poverty line, but the limit of people not paying taxes has grown and grown. So I think generally, if you're a family of four, under 50 grand, you don't pay anything now. And that gets to be a real problem, because if you don't pay any taxes, you vote for bigger and you want to vote for bigger and bigger government.
Is that what we see at the top of that bracket? I mean, the bracket of folks who don't pay taxes, what's the maximum that they could earn? Because $50,000 may seem like a lot for one person, but for a family of four, it's tough, right? I guess it depends where you live.
Well, that's right. But again, I mean, the problem is if all these federal subsidies are showering down on the people at the bottom, they don't pay any taxes, so they don't feel any price or cost of government. They're going to vote for more and more government, which is a problem.
I mean, I don't know that I have a problem with the top 1% paying 40% of the taxes.
40%. The top 1% pay 40.
I know, but so what? They're making a ton of money, so why not that they give back more?
But you know what?
40%. Of all tax revenue in the United States.
But you take, $25,000 or $30,000 and try to live on that if you're a family with a couple of kids. I don't know.
Certainly going ahead, we see all the spending pressure in Washington. You can't finance all that spending in those giant trillion-dollar deficits with more taxes on the wealthy, that's for sure. I think that's why President Obama is thinking about a value-added tax now, which would hit broadly on the middle class.
I wonder what you think about the regional divides, because no one ever seems to talk about the fact that making $200,000 a year while in Columbus, Ohio, my hometown, that's a lot of money. Making $200,000 a year in New York, especially if you're a family of four, is tough.
That's right. I mean, and the federal tax code is not adjusted by regional variations like that. So the tax bracket break points, where the rates get higher and higher, don't adjust for the fact that the cost of living in New York City and Washington, D.C. is much higher than in places like Ohio.
Hey, Chris, you've got another chart that I know you've been looking at, and that shows the average corporate tax rate in 30 major industrial countries, and it compares what they've been paying over the years, over the last decade or so. In comparison, the comparable U.S. rate is 40%. So that is way above. 2009, it was about 26%.
And the trend has been down. If you look over the average of 30 countries around the world, the trend has been down. How about in the U.S.?
Well, in the U.S., the last time we cut our corporate tax rate was 1986, 25 years ago, in a bipartisan agreement. So this is a problem. There's been a revolution around the world in cutting corporate tax rates. Even in the welfare states in Europe now have much lower tax rates than we do.
Why is that? Is it because it's so attractive to do business here? Because clearly companies around the world still want to do business in the U.S.
But you know, there's a problem. Companies like Intel Corporation, they could build a new semiconductor plant in Arizona or California, or they could build it in Vietnam and China, where they've been building plants. So at the margin, big multinationals, they're deciding to put their investment abroad, I'm afraid.
Let me throw something at you from the Tax Policy Center. Again, about 27% taxes that we have, federal, state, and local here in the U.S. are about 27% of U.S. GDP. If you go outside to developed countries, 2006 taxes in 30 of the world's richest countries average about 36% of GDP. So if you break it down into percentage, it doesn't look so ugly here in the U.S.
It is true. We have been climbing up now. I mean, the U.S. size of government now, we're as big as Canada, we're as big as New Zealand, and our government is actually bigger than Australia now. So we used to be really exceptional, and we're getting less exceptional.
But we're not the worst if you do it on a percentage basis.
We're not the worst. That is true.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. We're going to continue. We're not. Thank you, Chris. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll
the
come
Cato
back, because
Institute.
tax policy obviously going to be an
and there's
issue.
a million other questions.
On.
We're going to get to talk about the flat tax, which I would have liked to get into.
That would be an interesting one. All right, Chris, thanks so much. We're going to take that.